Hi, Ron. Okay, we're live on YouTube. Good evening, everybody. And welcome to a special edition of our Thursday night class. We're so happy to have everyone with us. Very special honor to have my dear friend, Mr. Chaim Hirsch with us. It's a very important topic, a topic which touches very close to us all during this time, especially those of us who have our children home. All year long, we could all use a little bit of refreshers on parenting, on chinuch. Just if during the class we use the word chinuch, chinuch is a Hebrew word for parenting or proper parenting or raising children. So if that does slip out, that's what the word chinuch means. That's either from Chaim or myself. So first of all, welcome, Chaim. Nice to see you. Say hello to everyone.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, Rabbi Laredo, for having me.
Appreciate it. So let me just tell you a little bit about Chaim. For those of you who don't know, before I do that, I want to just thank tonight's sponsors. Tonight's sponsors is Ari and Shira Sipper from Kush Jewelers. I'm very, very grateful that they have been sponsoring our Thursday night classes. And it is in memory of Ari's grandmother who passed away, unfortunately, to COVID-19, Mrs. Chana Sipper, Chana Yehudis Bas Yitzchak, and may her neshama have an aliyah. Tonight is going to be, for now, the final raffle for a Kush brand watch. We went 4 weeks in a row, so I actually have one right over here with me. Mazel tov to those who won previously, and this is for tonight's class. So you could either win a watch or you could win a $100 gift card for Kush. So Bizrat Hashem, thank you, very, very much appreciated, Ari and Shira Sipper. Also Shabir Refuah Shlema for all those in need, especially our little girl Rachel Bat Tziona Tehila. May she Bizrat Hashem have a quick recovery amongst all those who need. So with no further ado, Chaim, let me just tell you a little bit about his professional background. Chaim is a CPA, and he's a forensic accountant. Did I pronounce that right, Chaim?
Perfect.
Okay. He focuses on anti-money laundering regulations. He's also a professor at FIU, Florida International University, in their JM Banking Regulatory Compliance Program. So very, very distinct, honorable friend of ours here. More importantly, Chaim is considered one of my best friends. So it's so happy to have you on. He also is very involved in the Jewish community and just community involvement in general. His wife, to those of you who know, started a beautiful Jewish day school down here in South Florida. My kids go there. Chaim teaches there. Chaim is in the background, obviously, and Chaim also teaches a very special Gedolim class, giving the great, how would you say, Chaim? The
great rabbinic sages.
Very good. The great rabbinic sages and their history, their stories, and bringing them to life to the children in a beautiful way. I myself have tuned in on some of those classes, especially now that they're on Zoom, and Chaim, absolutely amazing. He's also a popular speaker and lecturer in Hollywood. For the past 20 years, he's been speaking at Esha Torah, Young Israel, B'nai Sfardim, Beis Mordechai, Yehudi, other Jewish organizations. And to those of you who saw the flyer, I nicknamed Chaim the Magid of Hollywood. The Magid of Hollywood means the storyteller, the individual, the one and only who brings to life stories in Hollywood, Florida. So, and I'm sure we're going to hear at least one story from you, Chaim. Not only, I've never heard a speech from you without a story, and I've almost never had a conversation with you without a story. So thank you, Chaim. With that introduction, we are super, super happy to have you with us.
Thank you, Rabbi Laredo, for having me. I am honored to be here, and with all of those accolades of that introduction, it's very important that I give the flip side disclaimer that I'm not a rabbi, and that I'm not a professional rabbinic figure or a professional parent. I'm just a.
Although you're qualified more than many of them.
I'm just a parent. And so, we're going to talk about a lot of things that I've learned from different Sfarim that Rabbi Laredo has learned, But any of the practical tips that I have are literally just that, things that have worked for me, and I'm happy to share them, but by no means do I profess them to be, the end all be all. So I'm always happy to share and discuss though, always.
Thank you, Chaim. Thank you. And you are a model parent. And that's why when I thought of sharing a class and doing a class with somebody on parenting, you were the first person that came to mind. So
I appreciate it, but we all have a long way to go.
Your real life experience really proves itself in your children. God bless them, and in the amazing way that you and your wife Samantha have raised them, and Bezras Hashem will raise them till 120 in good health. Amen.
Amen.
So just as a little introduction on the concept of parenting, I want to speak about just super quick 3 short areas, and that's going to get us into, as Chaim and I discussed earlier, this is not going to be a one-off class. This can be definitely a series. So we're not going to just get into everything. You can't do all that in 1 hour, but there are going to be certain points where we're going to hone in on specific specialties that Chaim really has perfected that I've seen with my own eyes. So first, as an introduction, it's really important to know that prayer is super important when it comes to the concept of successful parenting. Just like anything else in life, whether it's in business, whether it's finding a shidduch, our match made in heaven, whether it's moving somewhere, getting something, selling something, understanding anything, we need to understand that prayer is the first and foremost ingredient. And so it is when it comes to raising happy, healthy, proud, and confident children. So that's one. I'm going to give 3 tips. Number 1 is prayer. Prayer is an absolute need, must. I'm going to share, both Chaim and I are going to show some books, share some books with you guys. One of them specifically focuses on that more than the rest, and we'll share that with you. The second is education. Education is something that, of course, no person goes to school to become a parent, right? You get married. You hope you got a little bit of training before your marriage, but that's just to deal with your new spouse. And then all of a sudden, kids come. You don't have to take an exam. They don't give you this book and they say you have to read this before your kid comes out. No, none of that actually happens. So the inner feeling and really obligation that a parent should feel to educate themselves on this super important very important task. Just like a person, Chaim, wouldn't go and start being an accountant, a forensic accountant. I don't even know what that is, but that's fine. That's not, I don't even know what that is. So if someone is screaming in the street, I need a forensic accountant, and I'd say, oh yeah, sure, let me help out, that would do nobody any good. So same thing as a parent, we need to know that we're not doing any good for our children. We're actually doing a disservice to them. We could be even as far as some of the books put it, committing a crime to our children by robbing them from a proper and healthy childhood based on just not educating yourself enough. So number 1 is prayer, number 2 is education, and number 3 is, as my Rebbe, Rabbi Yitzhak Berkowitz, may he live and be well till 120, he says the most important thing that we need to infuse into our children is happiness. A happy child means everything. He says that when he was a child, he actually said this when his father passed away just a little over a month ago. We had a Zoom Shiva. We had over 200 of his students on. It was absolutely beautiful. And he was speaking about his father. He said that the greatest thing that he was given from, that he inherited from his father, and obviously his mother, but he was speaking about his father, was that they raised their children happy. Rabbi Berkowitz tells me, he told us he grew up and they were really impoverished. They were really lacking. And he didn't ever realize it. He didn't know until he was finished high school. Can you imagine a kid living in a very hard and impoverished situation and yet just doesn't even pay attention? Why? Because they were happy. When a person is happy, they're able to look at the good in everything. So these are the three ingredients out of many that are super important in proper parenting: prayer, educating yourself, and making a tremendous focus on happiness. Chaim, interject on those topics, and then we'll continue. Go.
Well, I'll tell you, Rabbi Laredo, the happiness factor is huge, and everything that I've learned, and this is not from Chaim Hirsch now, this is from different Rebbeim and from Divrei Chazal, from the words of our sages. And they tell us that when a person is happy, it wards off bad things. So the happiness factor is actually not just a good tip to do, it's actually mission critical to stay safe. In fact, during this coronavirus madness that has gone on, Rav Elimelech Biederman, who is a tremendous Rav, the Bialo Rebbe on the Hasidic side, everybody has put out, you have to be happy. You have to go extra hard to make yourself happy, to put yourself in a good mood, because the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is trying very hard right now to get us all depressed, worried, anxious, all sorts of these emotions. And the children, talk about a chinuch opportunity, the children are going to mimic exactly what we do. They're going to look at us, and whatever we express, they're going to express.
And in the future, if there's ever going to be something crazy, some type of pandemic or war, God forbid, they're going to act in the same way that we were, either in, God forbid, chaotic or calm, tranquil, with emunah and bitachon, trust and belief in God.
Exactly. So the happiness factor is mission critical. And you know, on that point, you know, I saw an article written, I believe it was by Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg from Boca. It's on the Aish website, aish.com, and it was on the context of marriage, but I think it applies to every relationship in life. And he was basically saying, and I'm paraphrasing, and anything I'm adding is my own. And of course, feel free to reject anything that I'm sharing on my own. But he basically pointed out that the way your marriage went into this coronavirus, have no fear. It's not coming out the same. It will not, for better or for worse, it will not come out the same. And if I would dare add to that, the relationship that we have with our children, no matter how old they are, whether they're toddlers or whether they're, you know, teenagers or whether they're older, and we're assuming you're living together with them, that relationship, the way it went in, is not going to be the same when it comes out. And we have to think to ourselves, what do we want their memory to be when they come out of this? And we get to frame it. The best part of this is we get to frame it for them. So the question is, how do we do it? What practical tips can we do? And if I can share one Devar Torah, if you will, because I think it's very relevant. We just finished the holiday of Lag BaOmer last week, a couple weeks ago, and it's a big happy occasion, Lag BaOmer. We had this period of the Sephira that I'm sure Rabbi Laredo has talked about, I am sure, where Rabbi Akiva had his 24,000 students who perished and who died. And if everybody can imagine, especially in light of what's going on, imagine the biggest yeshivas, God forbid, imagine all of them, 24,000 illustrious yeshiva bachrim, yeshiva boys, 24,000 dying, and then they stop dying, and we make this big celebration, and it's a happy day. Lag BaOmer, we go outside and we dance and we sing, and we go haircuts, everything. And the question is, what is the simcha? What is the happy factor? 24,000 people died. How is that? And the answer that the Pnei Yoshua, one of our rabbinic leaders, tells us, fascinating, is that Rabbi Akiva, think about him. As a teacher and as a leader, he must have been so discouraged. 24,000 of his students were wiped out in a short little time period. But what did he do? He took 5 students and he started over again. And on that day, the Rashbi, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, that was the day on Lag BaOmer, one of those 5 students, because Rabbi Akiva picked himself up and moved forward, that was the reason for the big simcha, for the big happiness. So the first thing I even want to start off with, the messaging, is that whatever has happened up until this point in the coronavirus, and anybody who's told you it's easy for them as a parent is, I dare say, probably not sharing with you their full feelings. I'm telling you this as a parent who homeschooled for many years, who has 5 children, Kanai Nahara, ages 12 all the way down to 3, and it's not easy. No, if anybody's telling you it's easy, I would be remiss, and I would tell you it's probably you're not
impossible.
Not pulling away the onion far enough. So it's hard, And it's okay for it to be hard, but I want everybody to realize that the big simcha of Lag BaOmer was not that they stopped dying, but it was that Rabbi Akiva was forward thinking and said, I'm going to start over again. So the big simcha tonight, if you've been crushed, so to speak, or overwhelmed, the big simcha tonight is that you can reset that clock like Lag BaOmer, and you can start over again. I think it's a very important point in chinuch in general, and especially during this time in the quarantine. Just a thought.
So meaning after this pandemic, when life gets back to normal, Be'ezrat Hashem, please God, very soon, that'll be a reset for us, and we have new hope for the upcoming years of our lives. Something good to look forward to.
I agree, and I would dare say you can hit the reset button right now, because again, the kids are going to remember what happened during this time. They're going to remember the rituals, that they're going to remember the customs. You should, if you haven't done it already, you should invent customs, rituals, bedtime rituals, whatever they are, because they're going to remember, oh yeah, that's what we did during the coronavirus. We started reading that book. We started playing that game. We started,
creating good memories, good habits and good memories.
Exactly. So you can reset that button, and it's so critical to do it because that's what their memories are going to be.
Amazing. I wanted to share one more thing before we delve deep into the topics you and I discussed we're going to go into, and that is something you touched upon. I also read the amazing article that Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg put together, or was put in his name on Asia Torah website. Fascinating, short, to the point, really, really good, solid 8 topics on marriage and quarantine, coronavirus. It was very, very good. So on that topic, I think that the successful chinuch, successful parenting is truly based on a successful Shalom Bayit, on successful peace in the home. And it's not we can't take for granted the fact that a person gets married and the quickest a person should have a kid is within 9 months. It gives the couple to fuse, to become one, to work out their differences, so to say, become one, so that when the children grow, and even the children, right, for the first year or two, they don't really understand or remember much, and maybe even longer than that, it gives time for the parents to mature enough in order that could work in unison with the children. So number one is, that's why anytime I always give a chinuch class, always preceding that, I always gave at least one, if not multiple, Shalom Bayit classes, as we did in this forum as well. So it's very, very important that the foundation to proper parenting is successful peace in the home. And that is very, very important. And on that topic, when parents are on the same page, and that's why if you and your spouse are fighting and bickering about every little thing in the house and everything about life, so you're not even going to agree on the things that matter most on your children, on where you're going to go with your children, what you're going to do with your children, and the list goes on. So when parents are on the same page, when they're agreeing with one another, the children feel, and I remember my Rebbe, Rabbi Berkowitz, would always tell us, the children feel a sense of security. They feel a sense of everything's going to be okay no matter what's going on. And unfortunately, the opposite, when parents are contradicting each other nonstop, the children feel so insecure, they don't even know what to do with these disagreements. What they start doing is they start manipulating their parents for their own pleasure, for their own needs, which is horrible. They go to Abba, they go to the daddy, and they say, Daddy, can I do or have so-and-so? He says no. So they go to the mother, and then they say, oh yeah, Abba said, ask you, or Abba said, yes. And then they turn something small, and they add a little and a little and a little on both sides, and they really, it's a manipulation. And it's something that every child does instinctively, because instinctively, every person, and even every child, most importantly, wants to feel secure and confident. As hard as it is, and we'll speak about this maybe more in discipline, as hard as it is as a parent for us to discipline our children and say no to them for certain things, deep down, it's so weird. On their face, they're crying. They have a temper tantrum. They are saying no. Deep down, their soul is saying yes. That's what I need to succeed. That's what I need to become a proper person. So when we look at the face of our children, when we're telling them no to something that they're dying for, that they really, really want, of course, within reason, then remember that they're saying no, but their soul is saying yes. And that is something very, very important. This reminds us of the rebellious son, the wayward son, the Ben Sorer Moreh, in the beginning of Parashat Ki say this is Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 18 to be specific. There speaks about, and you know why the whole story, if it even ever happened, of that rebellious child is because the parents were not one. They did not see eye to eye with one another. It's not, if they did, that's when that child would have been unfortunately punished. But if not, it's not a child's problem. It's not a child's fault if they grow up messed up, to use that horrible term. It's because of the parents. If the parents are not in unison and they're not united in everything, and especially when it comes to the children are unfortunately doomed for disaster. So very, very important. Chaim.
Totally agree. You know, anytime that you or your wife have a disagreement about something, it is so important that you do that behind closed doors. Or if it's going, because sometimes it can't be done behind closed doors, sometimes it's in the moment that the disagreement has to come to a resolution. It's so important that the children see that level of respect. And if sometimes, by the way, it's healthy, in my opinion, and from what I've read and experienced, it's healthy for them to see the respectful disagreement in public, because they see how there can be an amicable conclusion and how they can resolve it. And when they see, again, the children, it's all about what they see. What they see is what they're going to do. And I once heard from a Rav, he said, if you want to change anything in your child, think about whatever you want to change in your child. There is a very easy way to do it. You don't lecture, you don't coerce, you start doing it yourself. And all of a sudden, monkey see, monkey do. Now, little tidbit and trick and tip for you, the younger they are, the easier that is to do. In other words, they're very impressionable when they're young, and when they see and they look above and they see how the parent is acting, they're going to want to model it very quickly. When they're older, well, now it's a little bit harder. That doesn't mean it can't be done. It just needs to be reinforced more and more and more. But to your point, Rabbi Laredo, when the parents bicker with each other, certainly in public, and when it's in a non-respectful way, that is it's a huge problem. Not to say that it doesn't happen, of course it happens, but the reality is that whatever you can do to just know as a warrior, when you wake up in the morning, if there's one thing you're not going to do, it's argue in a disrespectful way. God forbid, you should never argue in a disrespectful way, but especially 1,000% in front of the children, because that's a doomsday scenario. And if we have any hope that they're going to get along with their siblings, and we'll get into sibling rivalry. That's a whole nother story, which I can tell you a story about in a minute if you want. We could talk about sibling rivalry, because that's a huge issue for everybody all the time. And by the way, sibling rivalry starts when they're young, and it goes all the way up until, I hate to say it, till they die. Forever, okay? So sibling rivalry is a big issue, and something that's worked amazing in my house I can tell you about in a minute. Don't want to go off on a tangent. But to your point, when the parents are on the same page and there's that mutual respect, that's how we can hope there will be sibling harmony amongst themselves and amongst their peers. So that's a great point. It's up to you if you want to talk about sibling rivalry.
Yeah, so let's, Chaim, you brought it up. Let's speak about sibling rivalry. It's a definite important topic. And just as a preface, I want you to address this following, Bezrat Hashem.
Sure.
How do you manage the different personalities? That's number one when it comes to sibling rivalry, giving some tips about that, as well as the different levels of intelligence and abilities. Some children are great academics. Some children are great at sports. Others are great with their hands in building. And every child has their tributes, their abilities, and their, disabilities, so to say, obviously within reason. How do we mitigate that sibling rivalry and, as you so eloquently said, create sibling harmony?
So there are several points to be made there, and I may even ask you to repeat some of your questions, because I had so many thoughts running through as you said it.
Go for it.
The first thing to know is that, and again, what I'm sharing with you now are practical tips that have worked for me, and also things that I have read, and all of these from Das Torah, from our rabbinic leaders. So none of this really comes from my own head. I'm just sharing with you things that have worked very well for me. If you say to all of your children, everybody's going to get the equal amount all the time, it's not going to work, because life isn't equal. Life isn't fair to everybody all the time in every circumstance. Rather, what you make sure the children know from a very, very young age is that every child is going to get what they need. What you need, you're going to get. That might be different from you to you to you to you to you, but everybody's going to get what they need. And by the way, that's a huge Torah concept, because Hashem gives us exactly what we need. We say it in the morning brachas. She'asa li kol tzarki. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech olam. Blessed are you, God. She'asa li kol tzarki. You gave me everything I need. That's where it comes from. So every child has to know, if I need something, I'm going to get it, because that's the way Hashem treats us. So that's just a general mentality.
Right. In our house, we say you get what you get and you don't get upset.
Exactly. Now, we're going to get more into it later when we start talking about the Shabbos table. But one thing that I have trained my children, literally trained them to do, and it works amazingly. I have to tell you, it's been going on for Bli Ayin Hara, God willing. At the Shabbos table, everybody gets grape juice. And especially as they're younger kids, okay, what usually happens, one kid says, well, he got more than me. She got more than me. And everybody starts bickering all of a sudden. They got more than me. They got more than me. And before you even start the meal, they're already bickering. What do you do? So you know what I said to them? I said, guys, there's an important concept in life and in the Torah and in Judaism. When you're happy for somebody else that they got more than you, Shem says, wow, I have to give them more. So I said to them, here's the new rule in the Hirsch house for kids. Whoever says, and I'm literally training them, whoever says, I'm happy, and look around the table, who gets more than you? Whoever says, I'm happy for, that child that he got more than me, I have no choice. Here's the bottle of grape juice. I'm going to come around. I'm going to pour you more. And so now what happens at my Shabbos table? Here's what happens. It happens every week. I pour
Finish the grape juice bottle.
Indiscriminately, okay? Everybody gets, and all of a sudden, every kid says, I'm happy Rachel got more than me. I'm happy Donnie got more than me. I'm happy Jake got more than me. Everybody is happy that they got more than them. And they know they get one refill. And then the grape juice bottle goes away, and that's it. And everybody's happy. So when you start to train them to be happy that somebody else got more than them at a young age, as they get older, of course, it becomes more mature, but they're used to that mentality. Somebody got more than me. I'm happy for them. Now, let me share with you a story, because as Rabbi Laredo said, I like to tell stories. I will admit that I am a true believer that storytelling can actually change your parenting life. What do I mean by that? How can storytelling change your parenting life? And this is just a little bit of a side tangent, but it's a very, in my mind, an extremely, extremely important point. Stories can come in any form. They can come in the form of children's books. They can come in the form of Gedolim, of great rabbinic sages. They can come in the form of your own made-up imagination. Here's the key in storytelling. You have to identify what the kid needs to hear at a time when they're all psychologically pent up and frustrated and angry. Identify what they need at that moment, because that is not the time to give them a lecture. If they don't want to share and they're hot and they're fiery, Pirkei Avos, our ethics of the fathers tell us, don't talk to a person when they're angry. Don't grab them and say, let me tell you how to share. Let me tell you the importance of sharing when you're happy. They don't want to hear it, and worse, it isn't going in. Make a mental note when you see that sibling rivalry going on, or whatever the issue is, whatever issue you're having, you make a mental note of it, you file it away in a filing cabinet. Hopefully you've got a little bit of a decent memory. Unfortunately, I can't remember what I had for breakfast. Actually, I don't even think I had breakfast. That's how bad my memory is, okay? But you try to remember, what does this child need? And then during a story, You can invent a story, get creative with your imagination. Little children like things exaggerated. They like to hear about apples that are the size of homes. They like to hear about worms that are the size of elephants. They like to hear about elephants that are the size of ants. They like to hear things exaggerated. So get a little creative, but then tell a story about how that gigantic elephant shrunk and how he was helping the older elephant, and how the older elephant, who was so big, was able to help the younger elephant because he couldn't reach, with his trunk. Whatever, you start making stuff up, but you make sure that the lesson that they need to hear comes across. And again, if you don't have a creative imagination, you read them online. You can read in all of these svarim, but stories give the kids ideas. And if I can tell you with my own children from practical tips here, what has happened is that when I've told them stories, whether they're true stories of Gedolim, of big rabbis, or made up stories about elephants and ants, or the Schmiggelbaums, which are fictitious characters that I've just created, and their cousins, the Schmiggelsteins, and their cousins, the Schmiggelblats, and all sorts of crazy fun characters with all of these escapades and adventures, and you make them funny and different, and some are all sorts of different emotions. What happens, it's a crazy thing. You tell them those stories when they're open to hearing them. And when are they open to hearing them? At bedtime. They're open to hearing them around the table when they've got something in their mouth and they're eating. Okay, that is education, because that's what's going into their head. And it's unbelievable because they start to mimic it. They live, for better or worse. If you tell them a bad story, unfortunately, they're going to mimic that too. But that is the stuff that goes in, and it's got to go in. And I know I'm covering a whole bunch of different tangents and pieces right now, but in my mind, these are all critical building blocks and practical tips of how to get through to a child. Now, let me tell you, I'll finish with this, and then we'll move on to the next.
No, we're doing good. We're doing great. We're doing great. We're not on a rush.
I'm going to share with you a story that it's about a gadol, okay? It's about a big rabbi, and it literally has changed things in my home. I read it to them very indiscriminately. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and it literally changed things from a sibling rivalry standpoint, although it's got a whole bunch of different pieces, but you're going to understand. Let me tell you the story. Feel free to use the story with your own families, okay? There was a big Rebbe named the Radomsker Rebbe. A lot of people haven't necessarily heard of him, but he's known as the Radomsker Rebbe. And a father had multiple children, and he could only bring one child to go see the Radomsker Rebbe at that time, and they were going to spend the Shabbos together. How they were away from their families, I don't know, but the logistics of the story is that the father chose the one son, 7 years old. He's never been away with his father, and he takes him on this incredible Shabbaton where they're sitting together in the presence of this great Radomsker Rebbe, and they have an amazing Friday night dinner, and they're singing, and there's stories, and there's the Bar Torahs. And then their Shabbos day comes and there's more, and the little boy is absorbing it. And then Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos comes after Shabbos, and the Radomsker Rebbe says, everybody who's here is going to come up and is going to get a special bracha, a special blessing from me. I'm happy to give them a bracha, everybody who's here. And the children are going to get a cookie. Every child is going to get a cookie. So the little boy's excited, the father's excited, he walks up, they wait in line, and the father is holding the son, the little 7-year-old boy, and as they get right to the Radomsker Rebbe, the little boy is tugging on his father, and the father, we're about to get here, and the father, he's tugging and tugging and tugging, and finally the father comes down right in front of the Radomsker Rebbe, and the little boy whispers, and the father looks at the little boy, and he says, no. You say, thank you, and no. And the little boy is tugging and tugging, and the Radomsker Rebbe is looking and is watching and wondering what's going on here. And the little boy is tugging, and the father says, "That's it, no." And so the Radomsker Rebbe, curiosity gets the better of him, and he looks at the father and he says, "Is everything okay?" And the father looks and he says, "Everything is fine, Rebbe. Everything is fine. We're gonna get the bracha, we'll get the cookie. Everything is fine." The little boy can't control himself. He blurts out to the Radomsker Rebbe in front of everybody. He said very nicely, "Rebbe, is there a possibility that I can have several cookies?" And the father is horrified. He's embarrassed. He's trying to, cover his face. He can't imagine. He can't believe that the little boy said to the Radomska Rebbe, he doesn't want one, he wants several. Not two, not three, he wants several. Multiple cookies. I mean, the only saving grace is that the kid said it nicely. And the Radomska Rebbe smiled. And he looked at the little boy. And he said, little boy, he said, why do you want several cookies? And listen to what the little boy said. Father didn't hear this part in the whisper. The little boy said to the Radomska Rebbe, he said, I'm the only one of my multiple siblings who could come for this Shabbaton. He said, I want several cookies because I'm going to go home and I'm going to be the only one who got a cookie. I want to bring cookies home for my other siblings. The Radomska Rebbe looks. The father is now shocked because he didn't know that was the reason. He thought the kid was, a chaser. He was a hoarder. He wanted more. He was a glutton. No, the little boy was thinking of his other siblings. The Radomska Rebbe then said to the father, he said, this little man over here, it's a very special soul, very special neshama. He said, any soul that wants to share with his brothers and sisters, that's somebody who deserves to be rich. You know why? Because if they want to share, then Hashem should give them the money so that they can share with their other brothers and sisters of the Jewish people. Hashem should give a bracha to this little boy that he should grow up to be rich. He should make lots of money because he's going to share. And the more you give, the more you need to get, because that's how it gets distributed. Sure enough, that little boy became extremely rich. He grew up and he became extremely wealthy. He's alive today. My understanding, I don't know the story firsthand, but I read it in a sefer. My understanding is that the man is alive today, extremely wealthy, and indeed, he gives to many, many charitable, worthy Torah organizations. So here is the story. Hopefully I've entertained everybody for a minute, but that's not the point. The point is that I then told all of my kids, So we learned from the story of the Radomska Rebbe, the more you give, the more you get. So all of a sudden, my children start sharing with each other because I'm now understanding this and I'm following through. Now, it's not a free-for-all. You have to know where to draw the line and how to manage all that, and we can talk through all of that. But if you start to follow through after telling them a story like that and say, guys, the more you self-resolve amongst each other, I have a new thing with sibling rivalry. I tell them, self-resolve, daddy's not involved, okay? Because I'm trying to teach them how, of course, if it gets violent, then I need to step in, okay? There are limitations to that rule, okay? But normally speaking, self-resolve, daddy's not involved. If they self-resolve, if they learn how to share, how to give, I am going to make sure to reward them. Say, look, you guys are sharing with each other. I need to get you more. Now, again, it has to be things that are good for them. You can't just get them, more toy if it's not good for them. You got to be careful about that. But the concept, the underlying concept, the more you give, the more you get. This story of the Radomska Rebbe and the cookie, that is famous in our house right now. If you ask any of my kids, they'll tell you that story, and they'll tell you that it actually works. The more I share with my siblings, the more things that I'm getting that are good for them, by the way. They don't fully count that. So the point is, from a sibling rivalry standpoint, I just hit on multiple levels. That's how you can use a story to shift, to alter, and there's plenty of stories like that. Tons of stories. So all you have to do is find them. All you have to do is make them up. And then let that be the guidepost, the icon. Keep referring back to it, but most importantly, live it. Follow through. Because if you don't live it, then there's no point to it. You got to live it, model it. When you model it, when you live it, when you put it in, when they're listening at the right time, not when they're angry and all upset, but when they're happy and smiling, there's a good association. It's Hashem, you daven, like Rabbi Laredo said, then it works. Anyway, sorry, I went off on a tangent, but I think I covered it.
Beautiful. I hope everyone just realizes how Chaim is the best storyteller I've ever met in my life. And you had us mesmerized, and I'm sure you're going to do that in a couple moments again, because you are amazing, Chaim. Really amazing.
I appreciate that. I'm only trying to help.
Baruch Hashem, you are. Okay, so I think we did pretty good on sibling rivalry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can move on.
Absolutely.
I like that line, self-resolved, daddy's not involved. I like it.
Yep. That's an original. So if you don't, if anybody doesn't like it, you can reject it. That one is an original.
Good. Okay. So
feel free to use it.
I think on the same topic, and this is something that I've personally witnessed you master, and that is the idea of making sure to give personal time to each kid. So, and like we said before, not every kid gets the same. Certain kids in certain times of their life need daily personal time. Other kids could do fine with every other day or maybe even once a week. Depends their age, depends their needs. And it doesn't mean that if this week it was one way, it's not going to be the same like that for every other week. Give us a little, share with us a little bit of your insights and practical advice for personal time. You are splitting up your life between work, being a husband, being an Oved Hashem, learning Torah, praying, studying, writing, teaching, and also a father of 5. Chaim, shed some light.
Okay, sure. It's extremely difficult, but everything that's hard comes with tremendous bracha. So that's the first thing that everybody needs to know. We can talk more about that. As far as time, I want to share with everybody a very, very quick Devar Torah on that topic of time, and then I'm going to get into the practical application of how you do it, and how I do it, and you're welcome to mimic it. The Talmud in Bava Basra tells us that a person who encourages a poor person is actually considered greater than a person who gives them money. Let me repeat that because it's almost hard to believe. A person who gives a poor person an encouragement and motivation is actually considered greater than the individual who gives them money, okay? Now, the question is asked, why? That's where the Talmud ends. It makes that statement. The question is asked, why? There's multiple explanations, but one that really enlightens me on this topic, and it's on exactly your point, is that the most important commodity, most valuable commodity in every person's life is one word: time. Time. Because you can't get it back. Money can get lost, but you can make it back. Other things can get lost. A wound can, and then it comes back. Time you can't get back. Time, as they say, is money. I'd like to change that and say time is value. Time is value. And when a person gives another person their time, that is more important than money. That's more important than anything else. As a side note, complete side note, although it relates into the education of children, when meshulachim, which are poor people, come knocking at my door, right. Rabbi Laredo and I have spoken about this before. Now with the coronavirus, it's a little different, but let me share with you what I did pre-coronavirus, okay? And even now I do it on the front porch. I would invite them into my home, and before I would whip out my checkbook or give them $18 or whatever I could give them, because I am not quote unquote monetarily or financially rich. Baruch Hashem, Hashem gives me everything I need, but I don't have a checkbook to give them millions of dollars or hundreds of dollars at a shot. So I try to do it in a little different way. I give them something. I always give anybody who asks me, I always give them something. May not be as much as they want, but I always give them something. But I try to do it in a different way. And here's what I try to do. I have them sit down. I have them tell me about what their problem is. I try to listen to them. I try to give them the time and not just say, I got things to do. Please leave. And then I say to them, give me your Hebrew name and give me your mother's Hebrew name. And I have a little notebook right next to my checkbook, next to my charity book. And what I do is I write down their Hebrew name and their mother's name. And I say, look, I have children in this house. And what we're going to do tomorrow, after they wake up in the morning, I'm going to write your name down. And the zechusim that come from them making a bracha, from them learning Torah, whatever it is, I'll designate something. It's going to be in your honor and your merit for you to have a refuah shlema, a healing, or a parnasa, making money. And so what happens? Two things happen. First of all, I'm giving the poor person the time of the day. He feels valuable. I can't tell you, and I'm not saying this from, please Hashem, I am not saying this from any egotistical standpoint. I'm telling this to share with everybody. I can't tell you how many beggars have come through my house who have received $18, not much money at all, who have left here telling me, sir, you didn't slam the door in our face. Thank you. We give you a blessing that you should, have wonderful things. And we leave in very, very nice terms. And I gave them $18, but I gave them more than $18. I gave them time. But more than that, because that's the Gemara of the Talmud, more than that, the next day, my children will see a name and say, oh, Daddy, who's this? And I'll tell them, this individual is suffering from an ailment. This person's mother is suffering from an ailment. This person's child is suffering from an ailment. And all of a sudden, the children start to see that. So when we talk about time, and Rabbi Laredo, I apologize. I realize I veered, okay?
No, you're doing amazing. I'm just warning you that you're definitely coming back on at least one more time, probably multiple more times, but continue.
So the time factor is so mission critical that the children know you're willing to give your time to others. But now, to Rabbi Laredo's question, you must give time to your children, to your spouse. You must make time, because time is the most important value commodity. So now with that philosophy, if you will, now let's talk some practical ways. In my house, thank God, B'li Ayin Hara, I have 5 children. Fitting in individualized attention to each person, to each child, is rather challenging. I'm not going to deny that. It's very hard. I once talked to a rabbi, who I won't mention by name because I don't have his permission to say this, but this rabbi has many, Baruch Hashem, thank God, many children, in excess of 10, okay? And he said every child needs 5 minutes a day. And I said, Rabbi, come on, 5 minutes a day? He said, yeah. He said 5 minutes a day, that's what they need. Now, I'm not telling you it's a blanket rule for everybody 5 minutes a day. There are some who need more, there are some who need less, exactly like Rabbi Laredo said. But at a very, very young age, sometimes that's all they need. Sometimes all they need is for them to see this thing over here go away. I saw, and a side note, I'm going to tell you a little story before I get back to I saw it today. I don't know if it's true. It's one of these things that's circulating on social media. It was about a husband and wife that were, it was after bedtime, and the husband was on his phone playing Candy Crush, I think it was, and the wife was sitting there grading papers. She was a teacher. And again, I don't know if this is a true story, but either way, it gets the point across. And the teacher starts to cry. And the husband barely looks up from his phone and he says, what's wrong? Dear, what's wrong over there? And she says, well, I'm reading a student's paper. I'm grading their papers. And this paper, it's bringing me to tears. And she says, I'll read it to you. And she starts reading it. And she said, the assignment was called The Wish. And it was to grade school, elementary school kids. What is your one wish? And so the kid wrote in his essay to the teacher that his wish, before I get to the wish, that every time he goes to try to talk to his father, to his mother, they're always on their smartphone. And when they pick up the phone, they give all of the attention to the person on the other end. And if they're crying, the parent doesn't care, mommy doesn't care, daddy doesn't care. They're always on the phone. They don't give me attention. And then they say, good night, get into bed, and that's it, and done. And the kid is running. And what does he say? My wish, this is sad, my wish is I wish I was a smartphone. I wish I was a smartphone. Now this piques the husband's interest, and he says, well, I could see how that's emotional. He says, but you're crying over it? And here comes the dagger. The wife looks over and she says, that kid is our son.
Oh, yeah.
And so the husband immediately puts down the Candy Crush and he realizes what that was all about. What's the point? Again, I don't know if it's a true story, but it makes and it illustrates, you want to know something? We are all guilty of this. I'm guilty of it. I'll be the first to raise my hand. Let me tell you something that I like to do pre-coronavirus, and now with coronavirus, it's much, much harder. But let me tell you a little tip that I did as far as time before coronavirus and how it can help you right now, and then even more practical tips on giving your children time. When I walked in the house, when I'm coming in from work after a long day of work, I treat this thing like a loaded weapon, as if it's a gun. Let me tell you what I do. I walk in, I remove it from my holster as if it's a weapon, and I park it on the side in a different room. I am unavailable. I don't care who's trying to get a hold of me. I am unavailable because right now, for the few moments that I have before bedtime, I am focused on the children. Now, that may not mean I'm immediately jumping into action and playing Legos with them. Sometimes they're having meltdowns. Sometimes you're screaming. Sometimes there's a diaper that needs to be changed. But here's the point. I am present. No child will ever say at that moment, I wish I was a smartphone, because daddy's not giving me the attention that he gives to the smartphone. No child will ever be able to say that because I don't have it on me. It's a loaded gun. That's what these things are. They're loaded weapons, as far as I'm concerned. Again, with the coronavirus, it makes it so much harder to set those boundaries. But I encourage everybody from a practical standpoint, give your children a designated time, whatever it is, an hour a day, 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. Let them know that portion of the day is you to them. Get rid of your phone. You're not available. You're not available. Now, on a more, that's one practical point. Here's another practical point. With each of the 5 children, I've been doing this for a long time. And it started when we were homeschooling, and now we're not homeschooling anymore. Well, I guess we've reverted back to homeschooling because of the coronavirus, sort of. But pre-coronavirus, several years ago when we were authentically homeschooling, that's when this began. Every child knew they had a designated night that I would learn with them. Now, I want to talk about this because this is, in my mind, extremely important in my house. My daughter, Rachel, knows that Sunday night is her night to learn. Now, you want to know, what are you learning? Are you doing schoolwork? Are you doing homework? I'll get into that in a second because that's extremely important also. But she knows Sunday night is her night. Unless there's some catastrophic event, okay, even if there's a conflict of a bar mitzvah or a wedding or something else, she knows it's being made up either earlier in the day or on another day. She knows she's getting that time. Monday, that's once a week for half an hour to an hour at the most. 30, 45, maybe an hour, depending on what's going on. But she knows Sunday night she's got me alone for at least that amount of time. Monday night, my 7-year-old Donnie knows his night is Monday night. Tuesday night, my 10-year-old Jake knows it's his night. Now, I've also got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. The 5-year-old, about 6 months to a year ago, said, "Hey, Daddy, when's my time?" And it took me a minute to realize, wow, he sees what everybody else is getting, and he wants some of that too. So I carved out time. His time is Shabbos afternoon. He knows, and they wake up in the morning and they say, "Tonight is my night to learn with Daddy. Tonight is my work," and they confirm it every week, every day. I know tonight is my night, right? Yup. Donnie, Rachel, Jake, yup. Tonight is your night. They know that on Wednesday nights I'm unavailable because I'm learning with my Rebbe, a different rabbi, and I've got a private one-on-one session with him. They know that Sunday night is Rachel, Monday night is Donnie, Tuesday night is Jake, Wednesday night is Daddy's time with his Rebbe. Thursday night, depending on what's going on, it's either my time with my wife or I'm teaching at FIU, but again, that doesn't happen the whole year. That's a very select 7-8 times during the year. Most of the time, it's the time with my wife. And Friday night, of course, is Shabbos dinner. Now, my 3-year-old is now starting to ask me, when is it my time? I haven't gotten there yet. I need to somehow figure them into the schedule. Here's the point. They all look forward to that time that I spend with them. Now, equally as important to designating a slot of time during the week, and you really got to keep to it. Yes, you're tired after the long day. Yes, you've got so many other responsibilities. But I'm telling you, practical advice for somebody who's been doing it for a long time, it has been a game changer in my children's life. And what I'm really hoping to gain, if I can share this openly, this is my tefillah, this is my prayer to Hashem, is that over the course of that time, I am developing a relationship with them. And here's the real goal. Is it education? It's actually not. I told this to my wife one time. I said, I actually don't care what I learn with them during that time. I actually don't care if I'm doing a school project with them or if I'm building something with them. I call it our learning time to give it that auspice of the priority is, of course, Torah. But if they say to me, Daddy, I need help with something. You're really good at that. Can you help me with this? Or I'd like to, is it okay if we do Legos during our learning session tonight? You better believe it, because it's my time with them, okay? What's my goal in this? It's building a relationship because, and again, I am not professing to be the end-all be-all on this. What I am hoping for is that as they become teenagers, okay, they're not just going to say, shut me out. My hope, I pray, there's no guarantees in anything. My hope is that they say, you know what, Daddy, I want to talk to you about something because tonight's our learning night, and I want to talk to you about something. My hope is that they don't become adults and say, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm really hoping that they gain, that I gain, that relationship is built. But ultimately, you know what I'm really trying to teach them is that is how you build a relationship with Hashem. The way you build a relationship with Hashem is by spending intimate, quiet, personal time with Him. Whether it's with Torah learning, davening, helping people, mitzvahs, that is, and Rav Shimshon Pincus, if you read all of his books, and I know Rabbi Laredo and I are
big fan. Big
fans, and for everybody to know, I'm happy to publicize it. Rabbi Laredo, I, and one other gentleman from the community had a Seder, a learning time going. Unfortunately, we don't do it now, but we did it for a very long time, learning Rav Shimshon Pincus on the power of tefillah. Rav Shimshon Pincus is brilliant. Everybody should read his farm, all of them. A key component theme is that the way you connect to God is through intimate, private time. It's about developing that relationship. So I want my children to have a relationship with me. I want them to have a relationship with my wife. Of course, my wife tries to do everything she can to do an equal amount of these type of times with them, okay, with the children. And the goal is for them to realize they're building a relationship with us. We're giving them the time, which is the most valuable commodity. And then ultimately, they're not there yet. But one day, when they're at that sophistication level, they're going to understand that level is how you develop a bond with God, with Hashem. Now, I see the time also, and I want to make one final point about what to learn, because I realize how late we are already, about what to learn. Rabbi Laredo, you said it before, that every child needs something different. Every child is better at something else than the other. And I'll tell you, with 5 children, I have now started to see, I'm sure I've got a lot more coming my way. One child excels in one area, and another child excels in another area. And then forget excel, another child is interested in something completely different. In my opinion, one of the keys in parenting, my opinion and practical experience, when you feed the beast, what that means is that when you pour on what they're good at and what they're interested in, you are going to see almost automatic results. Don't try to fit a square peg into a round hole, if that's the expression, something like that, right?
Yep.
Don't try to force the issue. Now, I get it. We need to learn how to read. We need to learn how to write. We need to learn how to do math. I get it. There are certain skills. But when you have your private time with them, that ain't the time to force anything. That is a friendly time. When I say learn with them, I try to pick things that they are purposely and intentionally not learning in school. It might be a Jewish comic book. It might be, and as they get older, it advances and it changes. Now I'm at to the point where I'm learning Mishnayos with my son, but that only started 6 months to a year ago. Before that, we were learning about animals in Hashem and nature and seeing the incredible nature of learning about animals and then sneaking in, of course, not sneaking, but sharing, of course. Wow, look at Hashem in nature. And that's what I'm doing with my 5-year-old. Again, he knows he's learning with daddy on Shabbos afternoon. We're learning about animals. My daughter, 12 years old, I'm learning Rav Shimshon Pincus, which is an adult sefer. It's hard to believe, called Nefesh Chaya, on the greatness of a Jewish woman and what the role and the expectations and how she's greater spiritually than the man. Imagine that. I'm teaching my daughter. We're learning, and you know how she feels about it. Every session, both of us come out invigorated. Wow, Rachel, do you realize that you're on a higher level than daddy? You are innately, a woman is innately on a higher spiritual level than a man. Unbelievable. And you go through it and you learn about it. And what starts to happen is that over time, that starts to develop the relationship. So the point is, what am I learning with them? I'm learning things that they're interested in. Forget about what I'm interested in. It's got to be what they're good at and what they're interested in. And when you carve out your time for them once a week and you do what they want to do, even if it's playing Legos, when they don't meet it with resistance, one final piece on that, they always know they get a special treat. Now, of course, you don't want to give them total junk, right? And everybody who knows us, we're somewhat careful about that. You don't want to just open the candy bin and it's all, take candy and red dye number 40, which my 5-year-old is trained. Where's red dye number 40? I got to throw it out. We've trained them that red dye 40 is like the nuclear weapon. Okay. But sometimes if it's an organic popsicle, okay, or something different, something special for them during that time, there now becomes a sweet association with what you're doing. And again, it can be frozen fruit that is, mashed up in the Vitamix and it tastes like ice cream. It doesn't have to be ice cream. You don't have to get them all sugared up at 7 o'clock at night. I'm not suggesting you do that. Get them something where there's that middle ground, that's something that's good for them, both spiritually, both time-wise, and then of course nutrition-wise as well. But what you're doing is you're making a fun, meaningful, amazing experience with your child. And then they walk away and it's like walking out of the candy store for them. They're thrilled. And you didn't spend any money. I wanted to share this with everybody. You didn't spend any money. You didn't go to Disney World and spend hundreds. By the way, we love Disney World, but that's a whole separate story. Okay. You didn't spend hundreds, thousands of dollars. You didn't buy them a toy. You spent time with them. And by the way, if you think I prepare for it, I don't prepare for it. I just block off that time. The only preparation I do is finding out what their interests are and getting a book that's appropriate for them, that has a Torah message and a Torah value. Again, whether it's about animals or whether it's about Jewish comic books. That's where I spend my preparation, if you will. But I'm not preparing for that. I prepare for this. I prepare for other things and work related to that. I prepare for the Shabbos table, which obviously we're not talking about tonight, but we'll talk about that in another session. But I don't prepare for that. I give them the time. We learn it together. When I'm learning the Mishnayos with my son, sometimes we venture into topics that I didn't expect to venture into. But again, that's part of the learning process. And then when you make them feel good about it, I didn't get to the best part. When you finish a book, and I'm sorry, Rabbi Laredo, I know I'm going a little over.
This is amazing. This is amazing. This is amazing. We're all enjoying.
When I finish a book with them, you know what we do? We make a siyum on Shabbos. And we make a really, really big deal about it. I don't care if we just finished learning about elephants. I don't care if we finished learning about snakes, because there's always going to be something that you're able to draw and connect back to God, and assuming you've picked a good subject, okay? And all of a sudden, you make a big party on Shabbos, or any time for that matter, but Shabbos is the best because then they've got, you got time, and there's no phones that are distracting and all that sort of stuff. On Shabbos, you make a big deal. You say, we finished the siyum together. We finished this book, and we're going to make a big deal. And sometimes I'll take it one step further. I'll write notes. You don't have to do this, but sometimes I'll write notes, and I'll put a little book together. And we're talking about something so simple in a little loose leaf binder. And it's no big deal to you, to me. But to them, it's the world. You have no idea. My 10-year-old looks back at what we did when we were 5 and he pulls it out of the cabinet. It's this dinky little book. Got scribble on it. But to him, this was Daddy's Myceum that represents our special time that we did. So when you talk about time, time is the most valuable commodity that you can give them. Just like the Gemara says, I'm not inventing anything new. I'm just sharing with you what our sages say. And then what I just did is took it and tried to make a practical experience out of it. So hopefully, Rabbi Laredo, that answers that in a very, very extremely long-winded and digressed way, answers the question, how do you carve out time on a practical level, the importance of it, and what do you do with them? And all of those points I feel are extremely important, just from my perspective, because that's what Baruch Hashem, that's where you start to see some of the success. Hopefully. And again,
amazing. I don't think any of us expected such a profound and practical answer from you, Chaim. That was amazing. Really, we are all expressing our gratitude for you to sharing that practical tip with us. Really, thank you. As you said, the hour is getting late, but there's something that we can, Chaim, you and I know that there's so many topics we're going to speak about, and I'm already booking you from now. The Thursday after Shavuot, 1 week after Shavuot, everyone be here. It's going to be 8:30 Thursday night again, because this is too helpful, too needed for everybody, including myself. So that everyone pencil that in. Chaim, I need you to pencil that in, most importantly.
Yeah, I'll check the calendar, but I'm pretty sure pretty sure it's available. We could even
no flights, right? You're not flying out of town or anything.
I'm definitely not flying anywhere. That's for sure. We could even give the teaser ahead of time, because I think we know the topic is mostly going to be about the Shabbos table.
Yeah, that's going to be the main one. I know we did touch about it this time, but I want to save it for next time. I definitely want to speak about bedtime next time, even though that is a personalized time. We'll speak about that another time. The main topic, like you said, is we'll speak about the Shabbat table. Refocusing the Shabbat table. We'll speak about discipline. Hopefully we'll speak about the prizes reward system. Is that a motivation or not? I mean, there's plenty more things. Schools, choosing schools for children, how parent, child, and parent administration interaction. That is very, very important. We're not going to go through all of the books that each of us prepared to share. Maybe we'll each choose one or two, just to give people some reading material over the next 2 weeks if they want to deepen their knowledge in education in parenting. So we'll save that right for then. But what I did want to touch upon, you and I did plan on doing this, maybe Shavuot for a second, the upcoming holiday next week, along with something which is very, very unique to the eve of Rosh Chodesh Sivan. So the eve of Rosh Chodesh Sivan is going to be this year on Shabbat. There's a dispute. When should this prayer that I'm about to say be made? Should it be done today? Should it be done tomorrow on Friday? Or should it be done on Shabbat itself? For all intents and purposes, we're probably going to end up doing this prayer on Shabbat, to the eve of the new month of Sivan. And maybe I'll shed a little light on why is now the time to do it, even though maybe obvious to some, but maybe not to everybody. So the Shlah HaKadosh, one of the great Kabbalistic teachers, he wrote a very special, heartfelt prayer for parents to say, to beg, to plead to God to have successful, God-fearing, Torah followers, God servants, so to say, and successful, healthy, great children. This prayer, by the way, is something, and there's different versions of it. There's an abbreviated version. There's a longer version. Speaking on that of prayer, I have there's a fellow. He's probably going to watch this class. He's not on now. His name is Justin Cohen from Montreal, and I remember this. Look at this. My son is almost 9 years old. I remember on the day of his Brit Milah, which to all of us was a very, very emotional day. There was so much going on. I mean, it was on a Labor Day Monday in Montreal. It was the amount of people that came to my son's circumcision was as many people that came to our wedding, right? Just 2 years later. We were living in Israel at the time. 6 months prior, or even less, I became a certified ritual circumciser, certified moel. Everyone knew that I was going to be the one to do the bris. There was so many things going on at the same time. But I remember this one thing, out of multiple things, but this one thing. Justin Cohen comes over to me and he gives me a bag, and in the bag was 2 Ralph Lauren polo shirts. Not like that means anything, but that just to show you how I remember it so much. And in there was a little card. It was actually a photocopy of a card, and it was the abbreviated version of the Shlah HaKadosh's prayer for the children. I have that card. I kid you not. He actually gave it to me. It wore out quite quickly. I complained to him in a nice way, and he came back and he gave me some time later a plastified one. I want to just show it to you, just so you guys believe me. I'm not making this up. This is the Siddur I pray out of, okay? See, it's nice and worn out. At the end of the Siddur, I have taped on. This is the very plastified, miniature, abbreviated version of the Shlah Kadosh. And I can't say I've done it every single day, but even if I have to do it while I'm walking out of shul, no matter, I always try on a daily basis to say this after Aleinu L'Shabech, because this connects our mind, it connects our soul to our children and to praying to God, knowing that in essence, the success of our children is all going to be based on the help of Hashem. When we help ourselves, right? We have to help ourselves. We have to educate ourselves. We need all of Chaim Hirsch's tips. We need his Maggid of Hollywood stories to bring it to life for ourselves and to our children. But at the end of the day, we also need to understand that the key is being held by God. And for that reason, The Shlach Kadosh's prayer is sometimes said on a daily basis, but it is mostly said, it is, I want to say, Jewish internationally said, hopefully, to those who know, on the eve of Rosh Chodesh Sivan, the eve of the new month of Sivan. And the reason for this is because every eve of Rosh Chodesh is an auspicious time for repentance. It's an auspicious time to realize that, okay, our 30-day notebook that's part of the great 12-month binder is being renewed tomorrow. And at that time, every Erev Rosh Chodesh is an auspicious time for repentance, for recalibrating, for refocusing our lives. And specifically, the month of Sivan is the month of transmission, the month of Mesorah. Mesorah means transmission. That means passing down, transmitting the legacy, the heritage of our Jewishness, which at its apex is our Torah. We receive the Torah on the 6th of Sivan. That's why we are going to celebrate next week Shavuot. So the whole point of Torah, of course, learning it, of course, having the relationship with God, of course, teaching it, but the most important focus has to be our children. Because if every person just transmits the Torah, the legacy, that heritage to their children, well, that will guarantee its continuity. And therefore, the Shlach Kadosh says, the most auspicious time to say his beautifully prepared prayer, and therefore, even someone like me who on a daily basis says the miniature one, we say the longer, the complete version on the eve of Rosh Chodesh Sivan. And that would actually be this Shabbat. So I'm going to, Chaim and I are going to prepare a short blurb. We're probably going to have it ready by tomorrow. We'll work a little together on it tonight. We'll have a short blurb of a couple pointers that we spoke about, along with some references. One of the references in the book is going to be a link to Art Scrolled. I think it's 3 pages, English and Hebrew. You read it. If Hebrew is your preferred language, read in Hebrew. If your preferred language is in English, and even if you can read Hebrew, read it in English. Understand that heartfelt prayer that you are delivering to God, pleading to him to have successful children that go and follow in the way of Torah. With that, Chaim, I want you to, if you have something to interject on the Shlach Kadosh, and then I want to move on to the Mesorah chart very quickly. Go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, no, I think we should move on to the Mesorah chart, and then I'll talk about the chain, and then we can, I'm just, given the hour being late, we can probably, end it with those. I'm just getting, unless you want to go through more things, but to be.
No, I think it's late, and believe it or not, I have something to do afterwards, like we spoke about. Right. Okay, so I'm going to share with you now, as I shared with Chaim earlier. This is a Mesorah chart, a transmission from Sinai, generation to generation, from father to son, or whether it be teacher to student, all the way from Moses to you and I standing here today. This chart was primarily prepared by Rabbi Lawrence Kellerman, who we have so much to speak about in his own right, but we can't get into that now. And that's the majority of the chart. And then it was adapted by Rabbi Yoel Gold, who's a colleague of mine, who is everyone knows him. He's a very, very famous storyteller, right, Chaim? Obviously, very, very famous storyteller. He did graduate Rabbi Berkowitz's Kollel and left, unfortunately, prior to me even getting there. But I've met him and we spoke, and this comes directly from him. And what he says he does is that on Shavuot, with all the important things that we have to do, and I'm throwing this in there, side note, make sure you spend, even though Chaim, like you said, you have once a week time for each of your children to learn, make sure on Shavuot, and we have the gift of it being 2 days, make sure that within those 2 days you at least spend one unique designated carved out time with each of your children to learn Torah, whether it be in the middle of the night, like many of us stay up, or whether it be in the day, anytime. But this time, even though you have your weekly time, there has to be something very specific on Shavuot. And what he does is he prints this out, whether it's the 4 or 5 pages or whether it's in shrink down 1 page, to show the children that this is real. There's real names. There are real people that transmitted it, that received it from God to Moses all the way down to you. So let me, I know you guys like doing this. Let me open it up. Let me unmute everyone for a moment. And Chaim, I know you have something to say on that. So hold it, because this is going to be fun. I want to see if anyone can take a guess. How many generations, teacher, student, from Moses to you and I today? All right, I'm unmuting everybody. Feel free to raise your hand and try to take a guess.
He swings his arm around 93 and heads straight north.
Anybody would take a guess how many generations you think we are from Moses to us today?
20 years.
Barry Lynn.
1,000.
1,000 generations.
No.
Okay. Let's put this into, okay, our accountant is Ron Friedman is definitely disagreeing with that, and I agree. But listen to this. Let's make a calculation. There's 3,332 years ago is when we received the Torah. If there was 1,000, that means there'd be like 3.5-year-old each time, right?
Okay.
Okay, so Ron, unmute yourself. Let's hear you.
Eileen knows.
Go, Ron.
I say like 200, about 200.
Okay, close, but I could think of a better accountant knowing it better. Let's see.
24.
Ask his wife.
I'm very flattered by that.
Okay, Yehuda, how many?
24.
24. I think that's a little low, Yehuda. 3,332 years. There's only been 24 links in the transmission.
240, I mean.
They live for a long
240.
time.
Okay, Ron was closer. Let's see.
By 50, if you calculate 70 years old for a lifespan.
No.
Okay, that's a fair. Okay, I'm going to share with you this. I'm going to take everyone. I'm going to put everyone back to mute.
170.
You were closer the first time. Okay, so look at this. I'm going to share with you the transmission, and you're going to see how this transmission chart, and it's actually beautiful. Where did it go? Boom, boom, boom. I'm looking for it. 1 second. Where is it? Give me 1 second. It was here a second ago. This is weird. 1 second. It's right here on my screen, and I'm not able to get it to you. Give me 1 moment. Okay. Okay, Chaim. How about this? Tell us your amazing.
Sure.
Okay, I found it. Sorry.
Okay.
While we're on it. Okay, look at this, everyone. Sorry, Chaim.
No worries.
This is a complete transmission from Moshe Rabbeinu until today. A little bit of sources here. This is going to be available to everybody, so don't bother taking notes because you're not going to get this quick, okay? The answer is to how many generations is. So look at this. The first is, you have here the early links, obviously Moses, Joshua, Pinchas, Eli. You have the prophets, okay? You have the Tanaim, that's the next era, the Amoraim. So the Tanaim is basically the Mishnaic era, Amoraim is the Talmudic era. Then you have the Savoraim, very short era afterwards, only 4 generations. The Gaonim, that's afterwards. That's approximately the year 500 to 1,000 from the Common Era. All right, we're getting up there. Look, we're already at 100. The Rishonim, that's the medieval scholars. The Achronim are the more contemporary scholars. And that brings us all the way till 138 generations. So there were a couple people who were pretty close. Okay, look at this. This is Rabbi Yitzchak Berkowitz. This is my Rebbe. And his Rebbe was Rav Nachum Partzovitz. It's a tough name to pronounce. Okay, he was the Rosh Yeshiva of Mir, and then Rav Baruch Leib Leibowitz, everyone knows him, the Brisker Rav, number 134. Obviously, very, very famous Torah giants and parts of the link of the transmission. And right after Rav Berkowitz, that would be, any of us, whether it would be me or any of his students, that would be 138. I want to just give a disclaimer. This is according to the Ashkenazic heritage, somewhere around here in the Rishonim, around number 100 is where there'd be a split, I guess, between the more European side of the Jewish world and the more Hispanic or Spanish side of the world. But practically speaking, we are holding by link 138. With that, I want to turn it over to you, Chaim, and tell us the amazing thing. So my point was, print this out if you get it before next week, and show them this is for real. They don't even need to read every name. They want to read every name. That's amazing. Each and every name on that list has or at least deserves a complete volume of that great individual's biography. Do you know what it means? Out of the millions of Jews to have ever learned, there's only 138 people in, I guess, one version and another 138 people in a Sephardic version of this transmission. That's fascinating. So I would say print it to make it very real. Now listen to Chaim's beautiful imagination to what he does in another way with this amazing link. Go for it.
Thank you, Rabbi Laredo. With that introduction, it's perfect because one thing, I try to do something unique and different for each holiday, for each Yom Tov, for even Shabbos. And what I've been doing for Shavuos for the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 years is the following. And it's to the point of what Rabbi Laredo talked about. And it's actually a game changer to the extent that my children were even asking me today, Daddy, when are we doing this? And I said, don't worry, we're going to do it on Sunday. We got plenty of time. But they already know to anticipate this. Now, it works wonders with young children, so with teenagers, but it gets the ideas in their head. If you're all adults, then you're just going to resort to Rabbi Laredo's chart and put that up and talk about it, okay? But this is more for the younger children crowd, but it's hopefully a great idea. Here's what we do. I take very simple pieces of paper, colored paper, and I cut them into strips. And then we make a chain. You take that one strip, and on that strip, you write down each person in the chain, the Mesorah chain, the heritage chain. And so it starts with Hashem, because Hashem gave the Torah to Moshe. So on the first chain, we got a whole production line. In Ainahara, right, with the 5 children, not all of them are holding a stapler, okay? One of them has got the scissor cutting it. The other one's got the pen and is writing it down. The other one who can't write, is folding it up. The other one who's, a little bit more better with his hands is doing the staple. And so each one staples one thing. It's a whole production line. And say, Daddy, who's next? Who's next? Oh, well, Hashem gave the Torah to Moshe. And by the way, there were 3 million Jews over there who were listening and part of this, okay? We're the only religion in the world who claims that 3 million people were there to witness this. Extremely important point to slip into their minds at that point, because this is the basis of the bedrock of our faith and of our heritage. So then, Daddy, who's next? Who's next? Now, I don't go through 173 people. We don't have a chain that big. Okay?
138. We said 138.
138. Sorry. Okay, I don't have a dining room that big. Well, actually, maybe I probably could fit it around the dining room, but that's a whole other story.
You do the main ones.
I probably could, but I don't do 178. They get the point. I have a list, and most importantly, I try to get the people, the big rabbis who they've heard of, because that's where it really kicks in. You don't have to force feed. None of this is about force feeding, just the opposite. Make it relatable. So you have Moshe. They know there's Hashem. They know there's Moshe. Most of them have heard of Joshua. Most of them have heard of King David. Most of them are, right? So you pick out the ones that they're familiar with down the chain, and you put the names on. But here's where it gets really interesting. You must make sure that you get down to your family, like Rabbi Laredo said. So I make sure that I've got, before me, my immediate Rebbe, the one who I consider to be my rabbi, my main rabbi, who all of my children know is my rabbi, who I go to for advice and for guidance, and who I've had my Rebbe for 25, 30, 40, almost 40, so not exactly 40 years, right? And they know that that person is right there above the chain. And then I talk about his Rebbe, and then I talk about his Rebbe, and his Rebbe. And I go as far back as I possibly can, so they know very clearly where it comes down to. But then here's the best part. I don't stop at me and my wife. And of course, it can get interesting because you don't just put yourself, you got to put you and your parents and your grandparents. And of course, the deeper you get, the less linear it's going to be. Don't worry about the linear. That doesn't matter. It's the concept of what they're learning. But then you get to them, and then you put down their children. So you write Rachel and Jake and Donnie and Davi, and Ari, those are the names of my children. And then I put Rachel's children and Jake's children. And they see how it goes from Hashem all the way down to me, all the way down to them, and how they're going to transmit it over. Now, what do we do with this chain? We put this chain around our dining room table on the ceiling. God bless my wife. She does not give me a problem with this, okay? And it's colorful. We try to use different colored paper so it looks nice. And all the names are on there. So guess what happens every meal of Shavuot. Now, this year, of course, different. We're not going to have visitors and guests over. But
I remember witnessing it last year. I saw it, and you explained it to me for the first time. It was amazing.
And guess what the kids love to do when there's visitors over? They bring them into the dining room and they say, look, my name is up there. Look, Zadie's name is up there. Bobby's name is Safta's name is up there. Rabbi, this is it. And they say, look, Hashem to Moshe. And they start, and sometimes the names are a little weak and you can't say, oh, well, I don't remember what that one says. And what does it do? It brings our heritage to life for them. And it turns it, instead of a classroom, instead of a lecture and a force feed, which God forbid it should never, ever, ever be, it turns into a fun experience. More than anything, hopefully the children will grow up, not just my children, but anybody's children who does this. Hopefully they'll grow up with that rock solid belief. No atheist, no other person from another religion will ever be able to tell them, no, my religion is better than yours. I say, well, really? Did your religion have 3 million people that stood and heard something from God? Nobody will be able to say that. They'll know that from the youngest of ages. So all of a sudden, you've created a fun experience, an educational experience, a talking point item. It makes it come to real. It makes it come to life. Now, I see the hour. I know it's 10 o'clock, but I got to get this point in about Shavuot. Very important thing that I do. Rabbi Laredo, I never told you that I do this, but my children also asked me if we're doing it again this year. The first night of Shavuot is the night that we all stay up learning. Now, I'll be honest with you. I myself have not stayed up all night learning. Probably, I haven't made it all the way through. Probably since my first child was born. That's a negative on me. I just haven't gotten to that point. What I will tell you, of course, I stay up extra hours learning. Sometimes I've given classes at 2 o'clock in the morning, but then I'll go home and I'll go to sleep at 3 o'clock. And actually, by the way, one of my fondest memories of teaching Shavuot night, I'm sorry, I have to say it, I know the hour is late, was teaching a class and Rabbi Laredo's son, Moshe Chaim, was sitting in my class. God bless him. He should live for 120 in good health. At what, 6 years old, 7 years old? And my father-in-law was there. It's one of the fondest memories I have at 11 o'clock at night. And this little boy is sitting there absorbing all of it. It was such a beautiful thing. I could not get over it. Unbelievable. So Rabbi Laredo, just a tremendous Yasher Koach. That was completely ad-libbed. But here's the point. My children ask me, like, Daddy, so are we doing it again this year? And here's what they're referring to. I tell them, hey guys, everybody gets into their pajamas on Shavuot night after dinner, politely, quietly, easily get into your pajamas. I said, guess what I'm going to do? I am going to read with you. I'm going to learn with you as long as it takes for you to fall asleep. Now, of course, you're opening a Pandora's box. What do you mean as long as it takes? Daddy, what if we don't go to sleep until 3 o'clock in the morning? That's fine. I'll keep reading. If we're reading the little Midrash says, or we're learning Torah, I'm not going to go anywhere. If we're learning Torah together, we're staying up all night, as long as you can stand it. If you can stand it, now you say to yourself, what kind of parenting is that? What kind of craziness is that? Let me ask everybody this very simple question. When you take them to Disney World, when you take them to places and they have a late night past bedtime, if you're willing to make a late night on any other exception, can't you make an exception for the giving of the Torah? If you're going to show them what's most valuable and most important to you, you tell them you can stay up later on this night, even later than the Seder night. If you can stay up, now you got to be in bed. And yes, close your eyes when you're ready to go to sleep, but I will read to you as long as you are in bed and behaving nicely and learning Torah. I'm going to read to you. And that is how we do it every Shavuot night. So they'll get comfortable. Maybe they'll just fall asleep on the couch. Doesn't matter. Don't worry. When it's 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night, they're exhausted. They'll fall asleep, but they'll have that memory that we stayed up as late as we possibly could have stayed up learning Torah. So I wanted to share that because I feel it's important. It's hopefully a good message. But between the chain and the staying up all night learning, or learning as much as you can with them, those are 2 practical tips that you can do very easily on Shavuot. Just relevant for
perfect. Perfect. If we don't stop now, we're going to end up learning all night also.
True.
Okay, so just to end off, Chaim, this was amazing. This was so fun. Like I said, in 2 weeks, Thursday night from now, we'll be back on. We've got a lot more to talk about. Right before I do the raffle for the watch, I have it over here. Okay. right before I do the raffle, I wanted to share. I know, Chaim, you may have many suggestions. I have many also. It's kind of hard for which one I should choose, but I'm going to show one book, display one book, and it'll be included in the link for everybody. It's one that both you and I, Chaim, both like, and have read. I can't say I read the whole book, but I've read definitely very important parts of it. Very important, and it touches upon a lot of that we spoke about. Number one, the aspect of prayer, the importance of prayer to be successful in raising our children, and also the idea of transmission and plugging the children into their legacy and their heritage. And that is a very amazing book. It's called With Hearts Full of Love. Okay, With Hearts Full of Love is basically a you're going to get it in the link, so no need to take it down, or you could if you want. This book is based on the story of the classes of Rabbi Matityahu Solomon. Rabbi Matityahu Solomon, just to give you a little bit about him, he is a fascinating individual. We also have to pray for him at this time. He did contract COVID-19, and he was in pretty serious condition. Baruch Hashem, he's still with us, but we need to pray for his refuah shlema, for his speedy recovery. Rabbi Matityahu Solomon is originally from Gateshead, England. He is a public speaker, and he's a very, very famous educator, very amazing. He serves as the mashkiach ruchani, which means the head of all spiritual needs. He was the head of all spiritual needs for the Gateshead Yeshiva for 30 years before moving in the year 1998 to Lakewood, New Jersey, when he became the mashkiach ruchani, the head of all spiritual matters of the whole city of Lakewood, specifically BMG, Bet Midrash Gavoa. Obviously by in Lakewood Yeshiva, very famous, Rav Aaron Cutler, we all know, the great founder. So he and Rav Aaron Cutler worked hand in hand building up Lakewood. So this book with I'm holding this down, sorry, With Hearts Full of Love is a book that is based on his great teachings on parenting tips, and just in the title, we all automatically know. And if you read the first chapter and the second chapter, you see that it's really the key to parenting really is within our hearts, and it's that connection to God and that prayer that we have with God, and transmit that over to our children. So for the next 2 weeks, you have your reading work, your homework. We have multiple books to share with you that we'd love to share with, and other resources that we will, Bezrat Hashem, please God, share with everybody. With this, we're going to pull the draw, and then we're going to let everyone have a great Shabbat, Bezrat Hashem, and preparing for Shabbat for tomorrow. All right, so I'm picking. Okay. All right, we have over here Will Cohen. Will Cohen, fellow Floridian. Is he with us still? I wrote this down a little in the middle of the class. All right, let's put this like this. Is Will with us? All right, we're going to give 5 seconds. 5, 4. I don't see he's with us. Okay, we're going for our next. Let's see. No. Okay, last. Let's see. Maybe we have a couple. Drum roll, anybody? Okay, he's not here. Next. Oh, wow. That's funny. All right, we have Eileen Friedman. Eileen Friedman. Are you with us? Of course you're with us. Wave, say hi to everybody. All right. Beautiful. So you can claim your watch either from me or at the Kush store. I guess the Kush store would be better. And please, or $100 gift certificate, whichever one you want. Please, God. Thank you, Ari and Shira. Thank you, Chaim. This was amazing. This was fun. Normally we take questions. Due to the late hour, we're not taking questions. Next time, we will hopefully try to carve out some time for questions. Thank you, everybody. Good evening.
Thank you,
Mazel tov, Eileen. Chaim, this was amazing. You are a rock star. We love having you on with us. We've got to do this more often.
God willing. God willing. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to see everybody. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Rabbi Chait, nice to see you. Speaking about Torah and education and transmission, Rabbi Nathaniel Chait, our Rebbe, our children's own Rebbe. Say hi to everyone.
Hello, Rabbi Chait. What an honor to see you.
What was that?
So glad that you're still going on. Wow, I thought I missed it.
The candle's burning late. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem.
Beautiful.
Okay, bye everyone. Have a great Shabbos.
Good night, everybody.
Oh, I see a lot of kids over there in the Friedman family over there. They're all up. I guess they were loving it. Bye.